So obviously, Adam, you lose a lot of really good players off last year's team. We saw them in the Combine. We saw them in Indianapolis. We saw them all through the 13 wins. Is there a number one overarching goal that you're trying to accomplish this spring when you're trying to replace, I don't know if replace is the right word, but you've got to have some starting guys and replace the guys that you lost? What are you looking for over the next month?
Yeah, I think there's individual development for each person, whether it's returning starters or guys that just got here or guys that have been in the program. But I think the biggest thing that we're trying to set the tone for is to make sure that these guys play together. And whether that comes, because I think our strength is going to be, we're deep at a lot of spots. We have as many capable athletes and football players at just about every position that we've had since we've been here. So what that looks like of them getting better together and then being able to play connected and all the things that comes down to playing good defense. Like, I've never been more energized than I am right now because of the depth we have, but also the amount of work that has to be done because of the depth, you know. And I told our staff this morning, don't be afraid what groups on the field together, because that stuff is not defined yet. We really don't know what it's going to look like as a group yet, but it's not a rush to get that done. So there'll be guys playing with different groups, guys playing with different people, and you know, that'll be part of the spring.
You lost, obviously, Jared, Braden Fisk, both, I guess, potential first-round picks, along with Fabian Lovett. You lost some real talent and some real experience. But with the people you brought in, do you feel like it could be as good a defensive line? I know you don't want to put limitations on things, but do you feel really good about the depth and overall talent on the defensive line?
Yeah, we brought in 4 defensive linemen. We've got 4 high school kids that'll be here later. And plus, you can't lose sight of the development, you know. And so what does that mean? The Danny Lyons, the Byron Turners, the guys that have played a little bit, like they're still the KJ Sampsons. You know, you add that because it's when you bring in a guy for 1 or 2 years and he's a transfer, that's one thing. But like what happened with Pat Payton was critical to our success over the last couple of years too, which was he didn't play at all, played a little bit, became a ACC Rookie of the Year, became an all-conference player. Like, so that, when we're putting the team together, when you're bringing guys from different places, high school, red shirts, all that stuff, and you're growing them all, I think the individual development of each guy within the team atmosphere is critical. And for that reason, yeah, I think I'm not going to put any ceilings where I think the front can get done this year. I like the piece that we added, and now we just got to go get better together.
Health-wise, could it even have more depth? If they stay healthy,
I think we could be deeper.
Depth?
I think, you know, defensive tackle is going to be an important thing. We'll see where Tamawa ends up playing. He's going to play all along the front here in the spring, and we'll see what that ends up looking like. But I definitely think we've got a chance, because even I thought Jaden Jones had a really good winter. You know, and he's a name that you probably don't think of right off the bat, but again, he was a 1-year junior college player that got hurt. So, I mean, last year he was just coming off. So, there's a lot of those type of pieces that are still in our program that I think are undefined of what it can be. But I have a lot of optimism about what somebody like that can do for us next year.
You referenced Tommy Wan, versatility. Is that something you guys went to the portal looking for pieces? You did look for versatility, guys that can play in the range spots?
A little bit. I don't always say, hey, we want to make sure we get a multi-tooled player. I think that happens in the secondary a little bit more than up front. Because up front, you can look at, there weren't many guys, I think probably Keir Thomas, Dennis Briggs, and a little bit of Braden, out of my 4 or 5 years here. So it doesn't happen a lot. But I think Tamawa fits into that realm. I mean, he's about 270 pounds. We think he runs well enough to play on the edge, but I think he's got enough stuff to play in the A and B gaps too.
Pat's added 15 pounds. How beneficial is it to get bigger, and why did you guys want him to get bigger?
Well, I think that's just a natural progression. I mean, he's still a young man. He's still growing, and he walks down the hall and you notice the size and you notice his frame getting bigger. And I think that's a credit to our nutrition staff. That's a credit to Josh Storms and our strength staff. It's a credit to Pat, and I just think it's part of the progression. I mean, look what Josh Farmer's done with his body. I mean, he's bigger than he was last year. And he's moving just as well. So I just think it's part of the development for him.
Linebacker DJ Lundy obviously made the decision after going to the portal to return. What has he been like since that return, and what has he told you guys he wants to improve upon as he enters his final year?
DJ has had his best offseason, but he should. He's going into his later years of his career. I think DJ's taken a lot of steps from a leadership standpoint. I think Tatum and D'Lo really helped that with him, because he was really part of that group last year with those two. Like, they were all played. It didn't matter which two of those three were in the game, they're all playing. But I think when they left, I think DJ noticed, okay, there's a void here, and not only do I need to make sure I fill part of that leadership void, but he wants to do it. So, questions like, he'll reach out and say, Coach, how can I do a better job of this or that? And not even football technique, just maybe of how setting up workouts, or how he should watch the tape with the guys, or how his communication should be, things he should say, things he shouldn't say. So there's a long list of things that he's trying to work on right now.
After him, linebacker group's really young, a lot of inexperience. Sean has some experience, Omar has some experience.
Mm-hmm.
How important is the spring for that group to have guys just emerge, push each other, and truly see how the competition kind of...
The good part about it is, Blake played a ton of special teams. Juice played a good amount of special teams. Murph played a bunch of special teams, even though it wasn't here. So they've all played football. And I truly believe that Omar Graham, like what he did last year for us, he didn't practice in the fall because of the ankle, and he basically battled through it the entire season. And so, last fall camp, I remember what it looked like, and I know exactly what Omar is capable of. And I think there's a lot of good football left in him.
The secondary too. It's got to be fun for you to have so many, good players battling for not a lot of spots. Just the competition level of that is where good programs become great, right? Like having competition like that.
Yeah, your best at places like Florida State. What we're building is the competition should be daily. It shouldn't be every Saturday in the fall. And I think you only create that by having capable players throughout your program at all positions. And I think a DB is critical, because it's hard to hide a DB that can't play because the ball's coming at him. Mm-hmm. So you better make sure they all check the boxes. And, obviously you can just look at it. We've recruited a lot of good length, guys that can run, guys that can play the ball, guys that can tackle. And, we're seeing that now, the depth showing up, especially, at safety, Conrad, Ashland, KJ Kirkland, like all those names are like, true freshmen. Some of them help, some of them didn't. Now they're going into their second year, and now it's like, okay, now we have some depth at that position again, and we've got a lot of good players in the secondary, but they got to go play, and this is what the spring's going to be for.
And obviously, Azarie and Fintrell have played a lot of football for you last year. They're penciled in. I know it's penciled in. There's competition, but you figure they're going to be playing a lot if they're not starting.
They should be.
Who else at corner can be into that rotation? Would you like to have 4 or 5 guys that you're rotating?
Last year we
corner?
played 3.
Yeah.
And most of the time you're going to at least play 3. But, look at what we did last year. We took Azarie, who's our third corner, and we started him at dime so that we could create that role on third down. Now, some games he played more than Fintrell because he was the hot hand, the matchup was good, he played more. I think you're always trying to find that next piece, so, obviously all the freshman corners that we signed this year are going to be at corner. But from last year's class, Quindarius Jones, Edwin Joseph, Jabril Rawls add to that mix, and they're all vying for reps, and we will use Edwin and we will use Jabril some at nickel. Because I do think it helps grow those guys. Just like, we used Renardo Green at nickel last spring. He didn't play a rep of it in the fall, but it helped him when corners were over in some other packages, or you never know when those things could show up. I think it helped his development, and obviously look what it did for J-Dub.
How do you see Earl fitting into the secondary?
We're going to start him the position he's going to work with immediately is going to be nickel. So that's what we see him playing. I think there is some multiplicity that he could add to it. But what we try to do, Chris, if you're a returner, we're going to put more on your plate from a position standpoint. Like, you'll see Azarie at nickel, you'll see Fintrell at nickel. Earl will probably leave him at nickel for the most part. Greedy, we can kick out a little bit of corner, but Earl will pretty much leave him at one spot here in the spring and let him get comfortable there.
What is it about Earl that makes him appealing as a player?
I thought he was one of the best high school players I've ever seen on tape play DB. Obviously we got him from another school, but I also got his high school coach here too. So feel like I got really good insight, and I knew what my eval was out of high school, and he was at Heritage, and I believe in my eval, and then hired his high school coach too, who I believe in too, and he had some fill in the space information that I needed too. So there was no hesitation on us taking Earl.
I asked Mike this earlier. How gratifying was it, or rewarding, or whatever word you want to use, to what happened at the Combine in Indianapolis with the guys you coach, as a statement to how good the 2023 Florida State football team really was?
Yeah, it was not surprising. I don't want to sound like over, but we're not preparing these guys to beat Georgia Tech. We're not preparing them to beat Florida. We're preparing them to be their very best in all ways when they're here and when they move on. And that investment is important to us. And when you see that start to show up, and then you see him coming in, and you got Jared and Jermaine sitting in my office this morning, and then you have Bernardo and J-Dub coming over, and all they want to do is talk to you. That's why you coach, to see them have that type of success.